So hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar, which is compliant and effective social media marketing. So there's quite a lot going on in advertising regulation, unsurprisingly, about what's going on social media, because as social media grows and people use it more for e-commerce and to talk to their customers, we need to make sure it's being regulated and that we're abiding by the right rules to make sure that it's compliant, but we also want to make sure it's effective as well, and that we're giving the customers what they really want to see on our social media. So today I'll be sharing some consumer insights from some market research that we've conducted. So as well as looking at that kind of really legislative side, really regulatory, and saying what you should be doing with your social media marketing, we actually want to think about what the customers want. Marketing should always be a two-way conversation. You should be finding out what your customers want and relaying that back to them instead of just telling them what they need to purchase and why they should. So we'll be looking at some of those insights and I'll be weaving them throughout the webinar so you can get an idea of how we can communicate that to our customers as well. So I will be looking at global advertising regulations as well as social media regulations specifically, because obviously it's really important, as I said, that we're compliant. I'll also be sharing some case studies for some research we've conducted and how they have managed to communicate on social media and use those results, and looking at the ASA cases as well, particular to social media. There's also going to be some rules for testimonials and reviews because it all relates, I think, quite well. And we'll be looking at consumer research as our method of making sure that we're compliant as well. So yeah, lots to cover, but I think it's a really interesting topic. And as I said, it's just something that if you're not using social media, you really should be to market your products, but we also need to make sure that we're not just kind of letting go of the rules, because it's, even though it's social content, obviously if you're a brand and you're selling your products, we still need to make sure that we're being very fair to our competition and our consumers. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm the Regulatory Director at ATOM Global Research. So obviously we're a consumer research company, so I am focused on things mainly to do with advertising regulation, which is why I'm doing the webinar today, to make sure that the evidence we're providing our customers is compliant for them to use. And obviously we work with a lot of cosmetic brands, as well as doing other kind of FMCG categories. So there's a lot about cosmetic regulation and claims that I like to talk about as well. So hopefully I'll be able to communicate that to you today. And as I always say, if you've ever got any questions about how to test your products or about claims regulations, please do let me know. I'll always be very happy to help. So I kind of want to give an overview of social media marketing first, because as I said, if you're not doing it, you really should, but don't just take it from me. There's a lot of research out there and a lot of people that have kind of looked at how important social media is. So Statista did some research this year, and I've got their kind of image as well, which I found really interesting, to say what population worldwide are on social media, who are active on the mobile as well, and what's the most popular network as well. So we've got over 4 billion people using social media and on their phones as well. So obviously, I mean, I think we're all very guilty of it, scrolling through social media when we're kind of waiting for the bus, or I don't know, kind of want a distraction from anything really. And we do get a lot of content, particularly adverts and things like that thrown at us. So it certainly is a great way to get your products across and to target your key consumers as well. And I think Facebook's an important one to bring up. It's still, even though we've got these new things like Instagram, TikTok, everything coming in, it's still the most popular in terms of an overall global audience. So very, very helpful social media platform to do your marketing on. So Statista reported that over 49% of the global population are using social media. So that's huge. Half the people in the world are on social media. That's reaching half the people in the world through your marketing. North America and East Asia are definitely the top highest penetration when you're looking at who is using it. Obviously, there's kind of from the marketers as well perspective. So Buffer did some research. They said that 73% of marketers believe that their efforts through social media have been at least somewhat effective, if not very effective, for their business. And this is because it allows a cost-effective solution to marketing and allows you to build brand loyalty. So you think of all those kind of really kind of young upcoming brands that really use their social media to build a cult following. We've seen so much of it, and it's really a successful way of getting that brand loyalty, as we say. So yeah, definitely, as I keep over-egging the pudding, definitely be using social media. So that brings me to my consumer insights as well. So as I said, I'm going to pepper this throughout the webinar, but just to give you an overview of who we're actually asking. We've got 533 participants that all regularly purchase cosmetics. So obviously this is going to be quite cosmetic focused, but if you're from another FMCG category, it's still all the same kind of regulation, everything like that. But yeah, I think as we always say, cosmetics is where you see the most adverts, most claims, things like that. So yeah, it tends to be a really good focus for us. So we had a majority female panel. The age spread was kind of mainly a millennial age. And we looked at the UK, the USA, and India as well. So the first kind of question I want to bring up that came out of that research is, what different sources do people refer to before making a purchase decision? And as we can see from the pie chart, so this is all the percentage of that overall 533 people, and 63% of them refer to social media before making a purchase decision. So whether that's looking at the brand page or already following a brand, they're definitely looking at it as a really good resource to get some information about the products they want to purchase, as well as other things like researching on Google, website reviews, and also getting recommendation for friends and family is really, really high up still. But it definitely is up there at being at least kind of 2/3 the majority of people are looking at social media. So when we're talking about what they're looking at on social media, we're looking at advertising claims essentially. So if you're kind of putting anything out there about your brand, as we said, it's anything that is to market a product that appears on social media, appears on TV, appears on the pack copy or the website, anything that you're using to communicate the effects of the product and the benefits of it, and anything kind of to do with why people should purchase your product is an advertising claim. So we really need to look at it, even though it's social media, it's still coming under that umbrella. It's supposed to help your customers choose the product, but also to help you stand out against your competition. Because as we know, the cosmetics market in particular is hugely congested. There's so many different brands out there. So we want to make sure that we're really standing out and that our product has got the best benefits and the best research behind it. So you really want to make yourself look better than the competition and come out on top as well. So these are some examples from social media, from TV, from websites, of some claims as well. So Neon sort of saying about naturals really working, and some consumer research data about leaving their skin radiant, nourished and hydrated. Augustina Spader doing the hydrated skin, meaning supple and elastic. Elemis, Rimmel, everyone is putting claims out in that advertising. So who regulates these adverts? And again, this is really the umbrella of advertising regulation, but it is still specific to social media marketing. So we need to understand the umbrella to make sure that we're fitting into all of it. So ad self-regulation is generally the way that adverts are regulated globally. So there's a couple of different countries like the USA that have Federal Trade Commission, but generally it's done by ad self-regulation. So basically, it means that instead of adverts being policed, so if you put something out on social media, it doesn't go through an approval process that's federal or anything like that. You're expected to understand the code and what you are supposed to be responsible for when you're kind of taking on that responsibility of putting your adverts out there. So basically it means they put out a code, you need to understand it and make sure you're abiding by the code so that your adverts are legal, decent, honest and truthful. So yeah, as I said, you're not kind of being policed, although there is a slight bit of kind of investigation that goes into it, but generally it's your responsibility and then everything is dealt with on a complaints basis. So it could be either your customers could see your advertising claim on social media or see your advert on social media and have an issue with it and report it to their local advertising standards authority. So that could be, so in the UK it is the Advertising Standards Authority, but every country has their own ad self-regulation body as well they can report it to. Or even if it's federal, the Federal Trade Commission, you can still complain about adverts on there. So it really is down to your customers, or it's down to your competitors. So again, if your competitors see one of your adverts on social media and they think it's misleading and they're not happy with the content, then they can also report it. And actually, they're probably more likely to report it because obviously you want your competition, you want to do better than them. But if you feel like it's unfair competition and that what they're putting out there is misleading and it could mean they get more sales than you, obviously you're going to want to report that. That only makes sense because it's making sure it's fair again. So really that's how it kind of works. Once they complain to that advertising authority, they'll then look into those adverts, find out, do you have evidence behind your claims, or have you been misleading or indecent in any way? And they'll essentially ask you to take down that advert. And it usually goes about that far. Obviously, if you don't take down your advert, it can be escalated. And, things like getting the Fair Trade Competition Act and things like that, all coming into it, you could be breaking the law. And we really don't want to do that. So yeah, generally, the best thing to do is understand the code of conduct of the advertising authority that you are advertising within and making sure you're abiding by that. Of course, that can become complicated because if you're global, you need to make sure you're abiding by every single advertising authority. So some helpful resources for you. The ICC, which is the International Chamber of Commerce, they have an advertising self-regulatory framework which countries can adopt, and over 52 countries have currently adopted that. So that's a really good thing to look at because a lot of the main markets are going to be using the same framework. So generally, if you're kind of advertising in a lot of those similar countries, do look at their codes specifically anyway, but make sure that, you can kind of guess that if you're doing that overall framework and you're abiding by that, you'll be doing each country as well. There's also ICAS, which is the International Council of Ad Self-Regulation, and they do have some information on their website as well, including all of their members. So you can look at who is a member of that and also look at their news and everything like that. So it's quite scary to think, oh God, every country is going to have a different advertising regulation. But generally, they are all kind of copying each other because if one country finds something that's unfair or indecent or anything like that, the other countries are going to catch up with it. But there are certain cultural differences that can have an effect on adverts as well. So please do have a look into it as well. And we can also help if you're unsure. So lots of things to think about with our advertising self-regulation, but now we've got our umbrella and we're thinking, right, I know who I'm being regulated by. Now, how do I make sure I'm abiding by those regulations and make sure that I am being fair? So a really important thing is, of course, claim substantiation. If we're going to be making these advertising claims about our product, saying what it's so good at and what it can deliver to your consumer, we have to make sure we've got some evidence behind those claims. We can't just kind of say these things off the bat. So there's two main methods of claim substantiation. There's the sensorial approach, which is obviously the consumers themselves, or maybe potentially experts looking at the site, the feel, the everything of the product on the consumer, whether it's the skin, the hair, whatever. And then we've got the instrumental approach, which is what we generally refer to as clinical studies, which is in vivo, so either in glass or on humans. I can't remember which one off the top of my head now. We've got in vitro and in vivo. One is sort of in a kind of petri dish, you'll kind of examine like that, and the other one is on humans themselves. So they don't look at the normal conditions of the product, but they just look at a very objective analysis of the effect. So, for example, we had a client recently that wanted to do some clinical studies to look at their purple shampoo, so one that takes away brassy tones from the hair. And before going on to consumers, they just wanted to do a test to see in a lab condition, if we have some strands of hair and we add this, then how do we, sorry, I just got something coming up on here, connecting to audio, sorry. That's really weird. My computer's trying to connect twice to this call. Anyway, we've got the lab conditions there. And if we add that purple shampoo to it, does it get rid of the brassy tones from the shampoo? So once we've done that, and we've kind of had a look at it, we can then look at the human testing as well to get further claim substantiation. So obviously that's kind of the instrumental study. What I really want to focus on today is the sensorial approach and the consumer study side. So what is consumer research? Sorry, I've got these two screens going on. I don't know how I can stop that. I don't know. Oh, remove. Here we go. Actually, I'm not going to remove it just in case, because I don't want to kind of mess up any technical issues. Very sorry about that. Back to the presentation. So consumer research, consumer studies are basically a way to reflect the actual conditions of the product in use and get the real consumers' feedback on that. So generally we're looking at targeting the brand's consumers. So if you know that your target audience is people that have very dry skin, that's who we will look at, and then look at how they would then purchase that product. As if they were to pick it up off the shelf or buy it online and take it home, that's what we're looking at recreating. So it looks at anything that the consumer can actually perceive, so the look or the feel, and really look at their kind of opinion of the product as well. So they'll generally test it at home, as I mentioned, and answer online questionnaires, because we don't want to kind of put them in any conditions that wouldn't be replicated if they were to purchase the product. It gives you some really valid, reliable data, making sure that you have access to this kind of, this data, and making sure that you're really capturing what's going to happen when your consumers purchase your products. So we can also look at testing products on their own or comparing them. And of course, you may need some additional evidence for certain claims. And that's, again, we can help with that as well. But let's focus on consumer research. So I want to look at a case study for this. So it's a client that we've conducted a study for, which is Skinny Tan, and they did their Wonder Serum. So basically we wanted to test their product in the UK and get that feedback from their consumers. We wanted to make claims about the product lasting a minimum of 10 days and producing a natural looking tan that improves the appearance of skin imperfections. So as you can tell, these are real perceptive claims, making sure does the tan last as much long as we want it to last, but we need to reflect the actual conditions to be able to prove that. It needs to be a natural looking tan. That's really someone's opinion. And improving the appearance of their skin imperfections. Again, that is people looking at their skin. Yes, my imperfections are, the appearance is improved. So we wanted to, again, reflect their target consumer. So we had an all-female panel because that's who they wanted to target. Their age range is generally 30 to 55 years old because that's, again, what their market is. It had to be fair to medium skin tones because that is the kind of the skin tones we're looking at having this tan effect on. And when we had skin imperfections, we have to make sure they're presenting some skin imperfections. So we categorize those as cellulite, thread veins, and spots and blemishes. So what were the test conditions? So to reflect the actual use, we made sure that they applied the tan once at the beginning of the study. We gave them the same usage directions that we would expect them to get when they kind of buy the product. So exfoliating the skin, moisturizing before, applying with a tanning mitt that we provided, and then rinsing and checking it for touch-ups before leaving it for that 10 days. And we wanted them to apply it to their face and body as well. So once we sent the product out there, we'd got them to follow these instructions. They answered an online questionnaire, and then we get all of this data at the end that we can then use to make these claims. So the claims that we got from the study are kind of presented in this overall table at the end of the report. So as well as having our very detailed statistical analysis that we don't want to go into too much today, we get a nice summary that says, for each question we asked, this is how many people agreed with the statement. So the kind of questions we've asked on here are: the self-tanning serum was easier to apply than others. It left the skin looking immediately glowing and bronze. It smelt better than other tanners, and it had a more natural looking tan. So these are really key claims that the client wants to make, and they want to kind of prove with this product as well. So you can see we've got the number of people that had a satisfied or not satisfied response and the percentage of people that were satisfied or not satisfied. So we can say that 86% of 50 people agreed that the tanning serum was easier to apply than other tanners they had tried, and so on and so forth. So as you can see, we've got some really high responses to the study. It was a very well accepted tan product, which is great. So how do we then communicate these claims into our social media marketing? Because that's really what we want to look at today. So I'm going to go back to that consumer insight study and look at what we can then do. So who are you drawn to from brand advertising or digital marketing? So 96% of people said a real customer. They want to know real consumers. What are their opinions? So that's what we've replicated within the study. We've then got things like brand experts and a public figure. So anyone that's kind of a well-known figure, they're coming up as well as really high up as well. But we want to focus on that real customer today because nearly 100% of people really felt like a real customer is who they want to hear from. So how do we communicate this? So on Skinny Tan's website, they have got their claims all together and saying that it's in a consumer study of 50 women. So we can show that it's these 50 women that have done this consumer study. So it's not kind of any particular group of people that have been specially selected. They're just real consumers. So 9 out of 10 people said the Wonder Serum was easy to apply. 9 out of 10 said it gave them a more even and flawless color. 9 out of 10 said it smelled better. And again, you just so on and so forth. You can see they've really clearly displayed those claims in a really effective way. We also then want to go into our social media. So we've got things from Facebook and Instagram. So again, we've got our 9 out of 10 women said that the Wonder Serum gave them a more even and flawless color than other self-tanners they've tried. And 9 out of 10 consumers agreed that it was a more natural looking tan. And they've put that they've got the number of consumers and everything like that to put it really clearly into that advertising. So just really showing that it is, of course, a great way to communicate that to the consumers. So this is where we kind of go, okay, well, what can happen on social media marketing that we haven't necessarily predicted? And we've been very, very careful. We've got the evidence behind the claims. The claims have been put across in the marketing. What could possibly go wrong? Well, the ASA had a case with Skinny Tan, where essentially an influencer had tried the product, posted up a picture of themselves online, and put a filter on it. So the consumers picked up, the customers picked up that there was a filter on this on this picture that was on Instagram. So therefore, it could be seen as misleading. It was a very unfortunate case because Skinny Tan didn't ask the influencer to do that, but it really shows how important it is to be really aware of the regulations, because essentially what happened is they just shared this person's post without looking too much into the filter, and unfortunately got caught out by it. So it really shows you can do everything right, but if you're not very, very cautious of the regulations, and again, with most brands, you've got a very different group of people doing the claims and the regulatory than the content managers that are just putting things out on social media. And it shows how important it is to make sure that everyone is aware of those regulations. But this has led on to something more with the ASA, which I think is a really good step in the right direction, where they've completely banned the use of misleading filters on social media beauty posts. So it's kind of that thing like, these guys got caught out. Now let's make it very, very clear to the influencers as well. This is the most important thing. The brands don't ask people to use the filters, but the influencers are being told, if you post things without with a filter on them, you will be responsible as well. It's very, very important. So it's basically a really good spot, a really good turn in the right direction. And one of the main reasons as well is that the ASA are obviously always looking and making sure that the advertising industry is a safe space. So they want to make sure it's also going to tackle the root of negative body image and confidence, especially among young people. Because again, we've seen a lot about this. These filters that are put onto places like Instagram give people an unrealistic kind of goal for their bodies or anything like that. So it's not really fair. Interestingly as well, when I dug a little further, there are certain people that are completely banned from actually doing any social media kind of paid ads or anything like that. So they're in breach of the CAP code. So they've consistently been told to put their things like hashtag ads, affiliate, whatever. And this is the CAP are the copy advice team for the ASA. So they are part of that organization. So they have been contacted by CAP to kind of label their adverts and things like that, and have consistently not done so. So they now are basically targeted as people that are not allowed to use. So if you ever get approached by any of these people to market your product, or if you're ever tempted to, do not ask them to. They absolutely cannot. So that, as you can see, it's very, very recent. It's only June, so only a couple of months ago. You've got Chloe Ferry, Chloe Khan, Jodie Marsh and Lucy Mecklenburg, who are banned from actually showing any social media kind of paid ads or anything like that. So that's an important point as well. The hashtag ad, I think we are all very familiar with this. So if you're an influencer and you're paid by a brand, and there's also, there's different layers of it as well, because you can do a paid ad, or you can have things like a PR gift. You need to hashtag it. You need to be very clear, because otherwise it's misleading people into thinking that you've purchased things off your own back, where actually you've been paid to sell it, or you have been kind of sent it as a kind of incentive to put it out on your social media. And we can't mislead our consumers into thinking that it's kind of an unswayed decision. And it can be really severe. So in the UAE, the violations are up to 5,000 dirham to be paid within 5 days. And then you get paid per day if you don't take that ad down, up to 10,000 dirham. And then you can get repeated, that it can be repeated throughout the year if you keep doing it. So it shows that countries are taking this very, very seriously. And you need to make sure, again, that this is all being put out there, because you could get some really severe penalties. So I wanted to look about, as well, as I mentioned at the beginning, things like reviews and testimonials, because I think it all falls within the same remit. When you look at social media advertising, a lot of people will put out, as I said, share people's reviews, share people's testimonials, ask influencers to review their products. And it's really important to make sure that we are not putting out information that then breaches those advertising codes. At what point does a review become or a testimonial become an advert, and when do we need substantiation for it? So what I found really interesting about the study we conducted is that 85% of people said that false product reviews are kind of the top reason why they would lose trust in a brand. So we really need to make sure that there is no kind of swayed, again, reviews going out there. They're all true product reviews, and that's been communicated well. Then 80% just below that said that no evidence behind claims is another reason why they wouldn't they would completely lose trust in the brand as well. So again, what point do your reviews become claims, and what point do you need evidence behind them? So the ASA have also put out a bit of information about this. And I think this is something we really need to consider, and that people can easily kind of forget about when sharing that content on social media. So marketers may not use testimonials to circumvent the code by making claims in a customer review that they would not otherwise be permitted to make. So it needs to hold evidence to substantiate the claim, and the testimonial alone can't make a claim. It does not alone constitute a substantiation, because obviously you need to have some kind of independent evidence behind those claims, and direct or implied claims in marketing communication need to have that evidence behind it. So how can you kind of make sure that you've got the evidence, you don't fall foul of it? And I've got some really good examples from Temple Spa, because they always put out testimonials alongside their consumer research data. And it's a really good thing you can do with consumer research. You can obviously get all of your claims substantiated, but also ask them, if you were to review this product, what would you say? And then use that as a testimonial in your marketing. And the great thing is all of the testimonials are substantiated. They're all backed up by the data within this study. So you cannot fall foul of that code. So these are the kind of testimonials we've seen. I absolutely love this moisturizer and look forward to using it every day. I love how this cream, people commented on how plumped my skin looked. I love this hydrating moisturizer. After 3 days of using it, it significantly decreased the appearance of fine lines. And then again, for another product, it gave my skin a lovely radiant glow and made me feel confident to go makeup free. It worked amazingly well on my combination skin, and it was left feeling soft, smooth, hydrated, and balanced. So again, we are very confident using those reviews. We know we've already got the claims substantiated, and the testimonials are reflecting the data that we've got on the consumer study. And then back to the social media, would you like to see this in scientific evidence of consumer study results alongside product benefits on social media? 94% of people said yes. So how do we communicate this? And again, back to Temple Spa, they've put up their social media posts and combined that with their consumer research evidence. 91% of people who trialed the double cream agree the moisturizer left their skin feeling intensely nourished. And 91% of people said this moisturizer left their skin feeling intensely nourished as well on their Facebook. Really great ways of getting this information across and making sure we're not falling foul of the code. But as I mentioned, consumers want to see this. It gives them real faith and trust in a brand if it's very clear their claims are substantiated and they're communicating it. And again, as well, sorry, there's more claims alongside their truffle delight as well. Sorry, I forgot about that. So we've got some great claims alongside it there. So I'm going to go to a question and answer in a bit as well. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the webinar that we'll be doing a Q&A at the end. So if you've got any questions, please feel free to start typing those in the Q&A box. And I just want to summarize the presentation before we do that. So it is essential to use advertising claims to stand out against your competition. You can't just kind of go, okay, I'm not going to make any claims about my product because I'm really worried about these advertising regulations and getting caught out. You just simply won't stand out because it won't be clear what your product is delivering. And social media is a great way to market your products. As we mentioned at the beginning, half of the world is on social media. You need to be using it. You need to make sure your claims are substantiated and do not rely on product reviews. So don't think that that's going to help you if you kind of get those influencers to talk about your product. You need to make sure there's some substantiation as well. A well-designed study and questionnaire is essential for that valuable data. That is what we can help with. Always feel free to reach out and always present that evidence very clearly in your advertising to avoid any scrutiny. So on to questions. I really hope you've got some questions for me and I'll be really happy to answer those. So I'll give you a minute. And if you can't think of anything right now or you want to take a minute to think about it, please do feel free to email me as well. So I'm going to share my email at the end. So I've got one question in. So what information on the consumer research do you need to include when posting claims, e.g. panel size? I mean, that's the really basic information. I always say the more information you can put out there, the better, because it makes it obviously to avoid more scrutiny. So you need to put what the kind of study was. So either if it's clinical or consumer research. So if people do the consumer research with us, they'll usually use the wording such as independent consumer trial or user trial, just to make it very clear, because again, it's two different things. If it's a clinical study, it's more likely measured by an instrument. If it's consumer perception, it's an opinion. So make that very clear to the advertising standards if they're going to look into your advert from the get-go. So always put the type of study it is. Always put the panel size, of course. So if it's 100 women or something like that, put that in there. And again, I just said women, that's quite important as well. If you've got men and women on there, that's fine. You can kind of say people or customers. If you've got just women or just men, be really, really clear. Say who was testing it. So that's generally the kind of really basic stuff. And the study duration as well, I think is really, really important. So I would recommend to say, the duration of how long they used it. So that's kind of the very basic stuff. The type of study it is, the number of responses, the gender or anything specific to do with the panel type, and then of course the duration of the study as well. Sorry, my brain just completely went blank as I was trying to relay that as a very basic thing. But as I said, the more transparent you are, the better you will always be. And that's always something I try and put forward to people. Don't feel like, I'm just going to say 160 people or something like that, because you're just not giving them enough information and you're more likely to come under scrutiny and get investigated, which you just don't want to do. You want to avoid it. So I hope that's helpful. So I've just got another question in from Katrina. So is there any way of noticing if some claims or reviews are fake or false? It's difficult to know sometimes, especially on social media. Of course, I mean, the main thing is are they presenting that kind of evidence? Generally, if people are saying, I don't know, it can make hair 5 times stronger, but it says nowhere on the post or in the website where that evidence come from, I would always challenge that and think, okay, well, why haven't you put where that's come from? That's kind of the main thing that I would look at straight away. Obviously, they can put evidence in there as well, but I think it's less likely. So that would be my main one. Of course, yeah, you can't ever really know 100% unless it's quite obvious. But this is why, I mean, you can report things. If you notice your competition, I've had it before where my clients will come to me and say, can I, get this claim substantiated? And I say, well, we can, but it's going to be quite tricky. It's quite a tense claim. We need to do all of this. And they go, well, so-and-so saying it, and it's really easy. And I kind of think, well, I don't think that they've got that substantiated, and I'm not going to report them, but you are very welcome to. That's your competition. If you don't trust that what they're saying is true, or if you're looking to purchase a product, if you don't trust what they're saying is true, report it. It's what the ASA or other advertising standards are there for. But yeah, generally, this is where I'm saying be very, very clear, because that is always a really important thing to look for, is if where that evidence actually came from. And I mean, if you want to be really transparent, just post the whole, post a bit about the study itself on your website. And a lot of brands like to do that as well. So is the pie charts using the study presented in percent? The numbers didn't add to 100%. Yes, sorry, it's because it's a multiple choice. Just to make it really confusing for you, they're multiple choice questions. So if I go back to one of the pie charts here. So yeah, 85% of people said false product reviews, but they also might have said another answer as well. So yeah, because we didn't want to just sort of say, give them one option for things like that. There's a lot of reasons why people might lose trust in a brand. So yeah, nice and confusing for you. Sorry about that. So I can't see any more questions in. So as I said, I will share my email address. I'm going to send the recording of this webinar out to you all. There's a couple more questions there as well. So just double check. Hi, Rebecca. So one of the brands refers to the claims on the website as 9 out of 10 people said X claims instead of 90%. Is that okay to say? It is, as long as the data matches up. So if you had 80, I mean, it's one of those things. I always like to say percentage. I think it's a lot clearer. But as long as, if you had 80 something, if you had like 86% of people agreed, you couldn't say 9 out of 10, because technically it's not. If you have over 90% of people agree, you can say it. But as I said, it's not my favorite way of displaying data. I would rather go for the percentage, because it's much easier to show that evidence. But both is allowed, as long as you can show that you've got the data behind it there. So as I said, if you've got any more questions, please do feel free to email me, and if you want to discuss a project or anything like that, I'll be really happy to help. So just to kind of wind down the presentation, I'm really happy to say we're sponsoring the IFSCC 2022, and you can register your interest there for next year. So please do join us. It's going to be a great conference. And there's my contact information, but as I mentioned, I'm going to send out the webinar. So please look out for that. And if you've got any questions, feel free to reach out. Thank you so much for all listening today. I know it's a lot of information. I get really excited about this topic as well, so I just chuck everything out there. But I hope it's been really, really helpful, and have a lovely weekend, everyone. Thank you.